Today is the day you will lose fat. Come see Dr. T at NJ Diet.
Easiest diet I've ever done. It's changed my life. Come see Dr. T.
Using blood work and DNA testing. 1-855-5NJ-DIET and NJDiet.com. Change your life in only 40 days with NJ Diet.
There was no collusion. There was no obstruction. There was no anything. So that's the nice part. There was no phone calls, no nothing. We have I won a race. You know why I won the race? Because I was a better candidate than she was, and had nothing to do with Russia.
Well, that proved to be true. Mueller's report, of course, coming out on Friday, and Donald Trump gets the win in a big way. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, great guest on Fox News, and now for the second time in a month on this program, he's got a podcast out, which is great, called Newt's World. It's on Westwood One. And before we get to Mueller and Donald Trump here, Newt, I got to tell you, I got to thank you, actually, because I had no idea what the hell 5G technology was until I watched your podcast. And not only do I know what it is right now, but how important it is that we get there before China. So thank you.
Well, I'm delighted to do it. That's the whole purpose of the podcast that we're putting on at newtworld.com, is to take a topic like that. We took one with Congressman Patrick Kennedy, who talked eloquently about his own challenges with addiction and with mental health. And we hope each of these podcasts will introduce people to new ideas and new ways of thinking, and really be both very entertaining but also very educational.
Very cerebral, informative podcast, Newt's World at Westwood One. You can get them. And now, Newt, back to the news of the day, of course, the president, the Mueller report, all that stuff. But some of these Democrats here, they seem, they don't want to accept it. They're seizing on the president wasn't exonerated. This is not an exoneration. Let me play a clip, if you will, of Dick Blumenthal, a senator. Take a listen to this.
There was clearly evidence of collusion, and I want to see the Mueller report, not the Barr summary, for all of the evidence and see how close it came to proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
How do you respond to people like Don and Dick, who, by the way, did not go to Vietnam? Mueller did. He didn't. But anyway, how do you respond to that?
Well, look, I think, first of all, the Democrats were in a world of hurt because they had based so much of their explanation on Russia, and now they have egg on their face because it was so clearly wrong. And I think that's a big part of what you're seeing with a guy like this. And then second, they simply are trapped into talking to themselves instead of dealing with the real world. I mean, if you go out and you ask normal, everyday people, if a guy like Mueller spends 2 years, all of these attorneys, all of this money, all these witnesses, and he says, there's nothing there, the average American is going to just shrug and say, okay, I got it, there's nothing there. But if you're a liberal Democrat, you're going, no, that can't be true. That ruins my whole life. There has to be something. And I think that they've got a very big problem in that sense, because they were banking so much on Trump being easy to beat and on some kind of gigantic scandal.
Yeah, I agree, but when you say big kind of problem, you see, for me, it's about the votes, Newt. Trump supporters are doing a victory lap, as they should. The folks that hate Trump still hate him. They say, listen, okay, maybe there was no collusion, but the fact is he's the worst president ever. They're still calling him names. It's the same thing. My question is very simple. Does this Mueller victory, will it result in votes for Donald Trump? That's all that matters come 2020.
Well, look, it certainly makes his life easier. It makes it most Americans are now going to conclude that he didn't do anything wrong, and therefore he's more acceptable. So I think it helps him. I mean, when Ken Starr reported on Clinton, he had 11 items where he said Clinton was guilty. He just came straight out and said he's guilty of 11 things. 5 of them were obstruction of justice, flat out guilty. Had Mueller come out with a report that said, Donald Trump is guilty, you'd be in a totally different world right now. We'd be having a totally different conversation. Instead, what you have is a president of the United States who has been strengthened, very demonstrably strengthened. You've got, I think, Republicans feeling better about their chances. And you also have Democrats who are just kind of nuts. I mean, if you saw the vote in the Senate on this whole green concept that AOC came up with and other left-wingers came up with, and not a single Democrat wanted to step forward and defend it. It tells you that they're being tied to some things that they can't go into a general election in favor of these kind of ideas.
Yeah, indeed. And I would ask you this question, Newt Gingrich. The Democrats, of course, are embarking in the Congress on a big, huge investigation in the House of the Trumps, 81 subpoenas, whatever it is. But now this whole Russia investigation got started with this Russian dossier, this dirty political trick that Hillary Clinton pulled, and it was used by some corrupt FBI people, McCabe, Strzok, and those people, maybe even Comey. I mean, should the DOJ investigate those people, investigate the investigators for maybe falsely exonerating Hillary and trying to frame the president? Should they go after those folks?
Well, I did a Facebook Live last night in which I said there should be 3 very big investigations that come out of the Mueller report. The first is, as you just pointed out, the whole question of the Justice Department, the Obama administration, and the FBI, and how do we get to this mess? The second question, which really grows out of that, is if they were that prejudiced and that biased against Trump, what does it say about how much they were defending Hillary Clinton? And that ought to be reopened, and we ought to find out what really happened. And to what degree should the Clinton campaign be looked at and the Clinton Foundation be looked at with fair and neutral eyes instead of what we now know is such a one-sided deal? And then the third thing, frankly, is the news media. I've called openly for the New York Times and the Washington Post to return their Pulitzer Prizes, which they were given for coverage which we now know was false. I mean, if they want us to believe in a fair and open news media, they have to accept some responsibility for being so totally fraudulent. And a good first step would be for the Washington Post and the New York Times to return the Pulitzer Prizes, which they should not have won.
Good luck.
And which were based on falsehood.
Well, Jeff Zucker made some comments a couple of days ago because, as you know, Newt, CNN has been round-the-clock coverage of how Donald Trump is guilty, and he was bold-faced in saying, I don't have any regrets. He said that was what was out there. They were doing an investigation. This was unprecedented where the president could be involved with an enemy nation. So not only are these folks not returning awards and not apologizing, they are bolder than ever in that we just covered what was a major news story.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, from the standpoint of Jeff Zucker, nothing did more to save CNN than Donald Trump. Both MSNBC and CNN should give Donald Trump their favorite person of the year award because he gave them ratings they would never have had without him, and he really turned them around. Second, Zucker, and this is what I've said this to the president on occasion, these people are his mortal enemies. I mean, if the president gets reelected, if we have the best economy in history, if he succeeds with North Korea, if 23 other good things happen, on the day he leaves office in 2025, these people will hate him. Jeff Zucker gets up every morning just furious that Donald Trump is president, and Zucker has nothing to do with news. Zucker runs, when you're overseas, as I am a good bit of the time, and you watch CNN or International, the Russians don't have to spend a penny on propaganda because the most anti-American network in the world is CNN.
No doubt about it. No, it just really is a world of a difference from just 5 years ago, how biased they are. And they were biased back then in a big way. Newt Gingrich is on the line with Bernie and Sid on WABC. His podcast is Newt's World on Westwood One. Newt, I'm going to segue to this Chicago spectacle. They dropped the charges against this racist actor out in Chicago. Again, the hate crime hoax. It has political undertones. Michelle Obama's former chief of staff made inroads and requests of the district attorney out there. This guy tried to smear a bunch of Trump supporters, all of us anyway. I would say that. And now the charges are dropped. What do you make of that?
Well, when you even have Mayor Rahm Emanuel say that this was a travesty and was totally wrong and shouldn't have happened, something profound happened.
That's right.
I don't understand whether, again, because Chicago is so corrupt and the state of Illinois, the state legislature is such a corrupt Democratic machine, probably nobody will do anything. But this is really so profoundly wrong that you would think somewhere somebody would have the decency to step up and say, we're going to investigate this. How could this judge have agreed to this? Well, what is going on here? It is truly astonishing and an example of how divided we have become. that there are people out there who think, look, as long as you're attacking Donald Trump, I'm for you. I don't care what you did. And that's really dangerous for America.
About 60 seconds to go. Let's put a nice little bow on this and wrap it where we started, Newt, and that is with the latest news on your podcast, Newt's podcast, Westwood One, Newt's World, I should say, talking about this race for 5G technology between America and China. Give our listeners the importance of that and why, in fact, we need to win that race.
Well, I'm going to do, in addition to the podcast, I'm going to do a Facebook Live tonight. This 5G is the internet of the future. It is what's going to connect all of us. If the Chinese dominate that and the Chinese define it, we're going to have a Chinese-dominated internet. It's going to be a radical change. That China is a dictatorship. We should not kid ourselves. There is a lot at stake here. And while we're messing around with fake news and we're talking about dumb things, the Chinese are calmly and methodically cleaning our clock worldwide on 5G. And we have to get the bureaucracy to pay attention and to get America back in the game.
I love it. It sounds great. It's worth debating and talking about. Thanks for bringing it up. Newt Gingrich, again, the podcast, Newt's World, Westwood One, on the Bernie and Sid Show on 77 WABC. Thank you, Newt. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
All right, pal. Thank you so much. Newt Gingrich. We'll take a short break. Joseph Abood in studio. Next hour, Bob Clappish on the new Yankee book. Stick around. More of Bernie and Sid on a Wednesday. Coming right back. Who was a Vietnam veteran and retired NYPD officer. Come on out to the Kettle Black this Friday, March 29th at 6 p.m. There'll be a $40 open bar and food package with 20% of the proceeds going to the club. Notre Dame alum and Staten Island native Kyle McAlarney, great shooter from the Fighting Irish. He'll be there as well on Friday night, and you get to enjoy all the tournament action with me. The Kettle Black is located at 415 Forest Avenue on Staten Island, and we'll see you March 29th for the madness.
Very good, Sydney. Friday night sounds exciting in Staten Island. It's going to be so Sweet 16. Your brackets, you're down to what? Number what?
Oh, I got almost all of them still.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I think I've got 14 of the 16 going.
Wow.
So I'm in 29th place right now. I've got Duke beating Oregon for the national championship, but I'm in very good shape moving forward. Very good shape.
I think I'm pretty much out of it.
You're out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about you at the airport on Thursday when I was watching LSU tear Yale apart. Then Yale made this amazing comeback. I'm like, there's one Bernie was raving about. It didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
No.
I picked Yale to go, I think, to the Sweet 16.
Oh, you did?
I think so.
Well, did you think this was like an SAT competition?
No, but
an academic constitution?
Know what I did? I watched some clown on Tina Servasio's Sunday night sports show. And I just, whatever he said, I just aped what he said. I mimicked what he said.
Very good word, by the way.
And, but listen, did you see Duke? The Duke.
Oh my God! Did I see
UCF?
Game. That was crazy.
I was so rooting for UCF. That would have thrown everybody's brackets into a mess.
Hey, listen,
but it didn't happen.
Johnny Dawkins was quite a player for Mike Krzyzewski at Duke.